business, like parenting, conditions you to have to be better as a person in order to get better outcomes or better results. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to understand that in order to get out of the rat race, we have to clearly define success.
Welcome to the Disruptance Podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric Forney and Michael Bounds.
Mike, every week on the show, we aim to disrupt the way real estate agents and entrepreneurs think about their business in order to make them more profitable and productive. And this week, I want to disrupt the way you think about the rat race. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that I want people to understand that there is no finish line.
Yeah.
Right, is that we're all in the pursuit of something, and the belief is that there is a stopping point in which we have to stop pursuing, and so what I want to disrupt is the idea that there is, in fact, a finish line.
Yeah. So, Tyler, do you want to define what the rat race is so we can have a context?
Yeah. Before we move forward, I want you to imagine what you think the rat race is. And now I'm going to tell you what the dictionary says a rat race is. Hold on, let me pull it up. I was trying to buy myself some time.
All right, I can. Let me tell. I'll tell.
I got it. I got it. A way of life in which people are caught up in a fiercely competitive struggle for wealth or power. And I saw a couple other ones. This one from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. The definition is the unpleasant life of people who have jobs that require them to work very hard in order to compete with others for money. And then Wikipedia has a rat race is an endless, self-defeating, or pointless pursuit. The phrase equates humans to rats attempting to earn a reward such as cheese in vain.
Okay, so yeah, where the term what rat race comes from is you said earlier, Indian culture. They would take a rat or two rats and race them. There would be a piece of cheese, and they would spend more energy running across the room for that piece of cheese than what the cheese was worth.
So that I don't know if it was from Indian culture. It was from the Times of India.
Oh, the Times of India. I heard India.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I heard India. Yep. Okay. So, what kind of gave me the insight to where I kind of wanted to discuss this topic was I remember I learned a lot by hanging out with Eric. I consider Eric a mentor. I learned a lot from him. And being an entrepreneur, we were in a room in our market center. This was probably a couple years ago. And when you're an entrepreneur, there's a certain feeling, emotion that goes along with this that a lot of my non-entrepreneurial friends don't really understand. And so I remember one time, you, Eric, walking in and you saying something about your business, and I had a moment of clarity that, oh my God, this does not end. The feeling that I have every day, this pie in the sky, this imaginary place, like Eric, your team is killing it, you're crushing it, you're selling a lot of real estate. And that same anxiety that I feel every day, or that same disturbance, or that same pull, you feel it too.
100%.
And I'm not saying you don't, but I'm just saying you're like Superman. So everybody's like, hey. And so it gave me a moment of clarity in knowing that I need to be comfortable in how I feel, because Eric feels it. I'm sure people that have a much larger business than you, they feel it.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be comfortable in that discomfort.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I was in a room at the Lasco Abundance event, and I think I may have talked about this two episodes ago, but they asked the question are you who in the room is afraid of being poor again? And, it's a couple hundred of some of the best entrepreneurs in the country, and probably 3/4 of the room raised their hand. that the most motivating thing for them is not being poor again.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think about the fact that that's pull, that's anxiety, that's that like driver that causes some of that negative energy. And so, yes, to your point, if someone's not an entrepreneur, they may not feel that struggle. And it's one of the things you have to get used to and comfortable with and accept if you're going to get into leadership or in entrepreneurship, is because to a large degree, it's a thankless industry. There has to be something a little bit deranged and a little bit off to say, hey, I'm going to go do this again tomorrow. Yeah. Unless that's what gives you energy. Yeah.
It's like literally getting kicked in the nuts sometimes. And then you're like, okay, I got to do it again. That's like, right. So, it's crazy. Like, you're like, man, you've got to be crazy to do it.
But you know, what's interesting though is that parenting is very similar in that that's the best analogy I can make for someone who's potentially not an entrepreneur is that parenting is similar in that when you really look at like the addition and subtraction of parenting, the sacrifices you have to make as a parent, the compromises, the challenges, the frustrations, the expenses, the losses. If you only look at all of the things that you give up or the sacrifices or the compromises, and you don't realize all of the things that you gain, it's an incredibly taxing situation to be in.
What it is what I'm hearing is it's the delayed gratification.
Yeah, there's delayed gratification, but I think then even the next level is you have to understand that, you know, I said that, you know, one of the failures in the Declaration of Independence was when it said that man would have the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right. The failure in thinking is that the pursuit of happiness is a human right, that when you get to the pursuit of happiness, that you actually attain happiness. Right. The real hack is that the pursuit of happiness is the happiness. Yeah. And so the next level ninja skill is to understand that the process is the fulfillment. The outcome or the product happens to just be like the secondary consequence or the result of the process itself. So you have to fall in love and enjoy the process. Otherwise, the product is really unfulfilling or unrewarding. But for the most part, everyone's chasing the product. Yes. They're chasing the end result.
We are conflating the end product with the pursuit. It's just like us when we're chasing money. You're not really chasing money. We're trying to buy our time. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're chasing money, and that in itself is a hole.
Correct.
That is insatiable because there's so many things that you can buy.
Enough.
There's never enough.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, it's just being really clear in what it is, what that pursuit is, and understanding that there is no separation from the pursuit of happiness. It isn't happiness. It's the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah. And so where the tug or where that pull, where that discomfort comes is when we focus exclusively on the ideal future, when we focus on the
future promise,
where we're trying to go and believing that once we get there, something will feel different or be different. When we're focused exclusively on that, is where all of that like disturbance comes from. And so that's where I think that people have to understand, okay, if you're just starting, a business now, or if you're in the rat race, then what you have to realize is that if you don't want all of that anxiety and pull and disturbance of entrepreneurship, there are things that you have to do to try to minimize it or avoid it in general. None of which are necessarily fun or without doing a lot of like inner work on yourself, right? Is that business is, Adam always says that business is the ultimate conduit for personal growth. And, I joke that he somehow got to be so wise and speak in parables at nearly the same age. And
it's crazy.
It is. It's bonkers. And so what I realize is how true that statement is, because business, like parenting, conditions you to have to be better as a person in order to get better outcomes or better results. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to understand that in order to get out of the rat race, we have to clearly define success.
Yeah.
And it has to be clear enough to measure it. You know, when I'm coaching some of our CEOs, or when I'm coaching other entrepreneurs, they'll tell me about a new initiative or something that they're going to start or do in the future in their business, and I'm always amazed by how rarely they're able to define success and what it will look like. So, you know, I'll almost always ask the question that goes, you know, when you get success, what will it look like?
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at how few people know that answer.
Yeah.
And this is where the benefit of having someone who coaches you to extract different questions of yourself is so key in entrepreneurship, is that we could all ask ourselves that question.
Yeah.
Right. You could ask yourself that question by listening to this podcast. What will success look like? What will I see when I get there? And you could journal about it. You could write it. But if you don't write it in a really crystal clear picture, if you haven't painted it like Thomas Kincaid, then there's a high probability that you'll choose to be ambiguous, and you'll negotiate with your own predetermined success because of the fact that you failed to define it up front.
And you won't enjoy that success.
That's right.
You won't smell the roses. I'm sitting there, I'm telling you guys, yesterday this happened to me. I'm standing outside in my yard. And last year when we were doing this podcast, this time, I'll cut my grass every time. This year I stood out in my yard, perfectly manicured and cut, and I never once cut it this year. And I was like, you know what? That was my goal. I was going to hire a guy to come and cut my grass. And this year I never cut my grass. And I celebrated that moment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because that's a win.
Yeah, I love that. So basically you were really clear on the objective, on what success was going to look like, and you know, there's some people that would hear that and go, that was great. Success.
Great. Yeah.
And yet the reality is we don't need to set goals or finish lines or success markers like Jeff Bezos, right? We don't need to go to the space in order to define something as a success. And most importantly, is we need to look back and we need to celebrate the progress from where you started to where you ended up. And how far that success has gotten.
Now, time out. I have an acre of yard. It takes me an hour and a half to cut my grass, and I cut my grass twice a week.
Yep.
So, out of all that time, my business is up. The market center recruiting is up. All of that, the energy and the effort. It sounds really small that I have a guy coming and cutting my grass once a week. But I got a lot of opportunity costs we just talked about in our last conversation. Yep. So that's kind of what I meant by that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're 100% spot on. That's important for people to understand is that someone will lose sight in understanding the true impact of having something like mowing the grass executed and the win behind that if they only think about it as like the job done,
right?
Instead of the emotional like strain it puts on you if you don't enjoy it, how much you don't look forward to doing it, and the mental toll that takes. Then the 3 hours that you give plus whatever time's invested in getting your tractor, whatever it is, ready to mow, and all of the process and waste and lag that goes into that. No. It's
worth it.
Yeah.
I'll give you another. I had a hose on the car. The hose, I could have climbed underneath the car, changed the radiator hose, or I paid the shop $100. And guess what? I didn't get dirty. You didn't see my fat butt on the cold ground. Like, you're paying for, that's what you're paying for. I'm paying for my time. I'm able to hang out with you guys instead of being underneath my car.
And so then an entrepreneur needs to define that really clear picture of success, and not that like Picasso version where it's abstract, right? It's like not kind of the rough general outline of what it will look like, but actually a super clear painting of what success will look like and what you'll see when you get to success, because then at least that gives you a marker of something to move towards. But I also think that we have to define the picture of where you start clearly. You know, I talk with entrepreneurs all the time, and they get so frustrated because they feel like nothing is working, or they always end up with problems. And so the focus is always about all the problems that people have in their business. And what's interesting is I've done this with myself, and I did it with the Market Center. And what we find is that when we're always trying to solve problems, because that's what entrepreneurship is, you're always trying to add value to solve a problem, to create value in exchange for money. When we're focused on the problem solving, we never look back at all the problems we've solved in order to have a new set of problems to go fix.
Right. Yeah.
And so I like to keep a list to start with of all the business holes or all the problems from the dawn of time that we've set out to go whack-a-mole, and then cross them off when we get them off the list, so that there's the ability to look back and go, hey, do you remember when we got here?
Yeah.
And that when we got here, remember we were just working in this little RV trailer because we didn't have enough to start with an actual real business, or we were working on the front porch because we couldn't afford, to own our own building or even to rent one, or whatever that starting point is. When we were Bill Gates, we were starting in our garage, and this was the progression. Because if we don't measure the progress from the starting point, we'll get too focused on where the ambiguous end goal is, and have way too much of that that anxiety, that drag, that disturbance of never measuring up to the ideal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you said it last week with the whole Megadeth and Metallica, living up to that ideal. That is where the disturbance, I guess, kind of what the rat race, what I hear when I hear I hear two rats chasing for a piece of cheese, using more energy than what is rewarded. So one way to get out of the rat race is have an efficient business.
Yeah, it is. And I also think too that to some degree there's some acceptance that needs to happen around the idea that there is no such thing as getting out of it. Yeah. To be human is to incur problems. And by that I mean it's that nothing in life will ever go your way exclusively, right? Is that if today I had woken up on a cloudy day and I had been attached to today being sunny, today would be a problem. And the reality is the world cares nothing about whether or not I wanted it to be sunny or whether I wanted it to be cloudy. It just is.
Right.
And choosing what I attach my own happiness to is what actually causes unhappiness and angst. And so that's the game changer for entrepreneurship, is understanding that you can't attach yourself, your emotions, your happiness to the actual pursuit of the end goal of happiness. You can attach it exclusively to the pursuit.
It is what it is. That's exactly right. It. I mean, and you have to be okay with that. You have to, literally, people get into being an entrepreneur. I alluded to this earlier. They hear freedom, they hear financial freedom, and they come in expecting that. And the problem is you have to get to that point, and then you get that. And then even when you get that, it's not really a thing that it's not a destination. It's literally taking every step every day. And then when it stops is when you stop.
Yeah. I hate how cliche this is, but it is so true, is that sometimes we have to change the goalpost about winning. Sometimes we have to shorten the goalpost, the marker, the way in which we define a win. Just last week there was someone internally who was frustrated about something that how others were showing up or not showing up, and one of the things I told them was we have to change how we define a win on the days in which sometimes getting out of bed is a win.
The win. Yeah.
Some days you're not going to wake up and run a marathon, and if you hold yourself to the standard of running a marathon, tomorrow you'll wake up out of integrity with yourself yesterday.
Yeah.
And so on the days in which you fall out of integrity with yourself and upholding your own determined, activities and what you're going to accomplish, you have to decide to move the goalpost that much closer and make just getting up the win to start stacking wins.
Okay.
Because when we move the goalpost to something that we can actually achieve, then when we honor ourselves and our commitments to the things that are easily achievable, then we can stretch the goalpost a little bit further. Okay. We can move it out, and we can start to stack the habit of winning. But sometimes we have to have little tiny micro win celebrations to make the wins compounding. And that's one of the ways you avoid the rat race, is that when you're only focused on winning the Super Bowl, you forget to win 3 yards.
Yeah.
And you cannot win a Super Bowl.
You got to get to the Super Bowl.
That's right. And you can only do it winning 3 yards at a time.
Yeah.
Because
focus on the fundamentals.
That's right. If you win the 3 yards at the line of scrimmage every single time, you will mathematically win every single game.
Right.
And yet most people will focus exclusively on winning the Super Bowl. The focus on winning the Super Bowl is what causes the most internal pain.
That's the anxiety. That's the pain.
And so you have to fall in love with the line of scrimmage instead.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is a great analogy. And so I'm wondering, do you ever get to a place where there is no goal line? You're just comfortable
Yes. And yes and no. Okay, so that's where it gets.
Now I'm in the Yoda territory.
Yeah,
right?
correct. This is where it gets really. That is the best version too. Is to think of it like Yoda. That is a perfect analogy, because understand there's like a couple ways to think about it. In a perfect way, let's look at it like I think the best analogy to this is Jesus. Right? If you think about being an entrepreneur, Jesus was okay with everything. Mm-hmm. And yet, at the same time, still tried to change what he could change in order to better society or better others. Jesus still showed up to serve based on his missional belief of serving other people. But at the same time, he was still okay with everything that he could not control or that he could not change.
Okay.
Right? It's like he didn't want to be dragged through the streets and beaten and crucified. However,
it happened.
He was okay with the fact that he could not change
it. It was God's will, right?
But he tried to do what he could to change it.
Right.
And so that becomes the Yoda of entrepreneurship, is saying, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to change what I want to try to achieve the goal line, but I have to be okay knowing that some things in life I cannot change, and therefore I'm okay with whatever I cannot change. I'm
not at Yoda yet. I'm still at the goal lines. I'm still at goal lines.
and so then we understand, right, that
I love that though. I'm aware of it, which is good, because I think half of the battle is being aware that there's another level beyond where you're at.
That's right. That's the first level of it. If you think about in the context of AA, the first step is the awareness, right? The admittance of
I've got a problem, right?
Yeah. The first step then in this particular case is understanding that there can be that level of being okay with what is uncontrollable. The same way that I'm perfectly okay that today is cloudy.
Right.
Because the cloudiness today has no impact on whether or not I choose to be happy or whether or not I choose to be mad, sad, and different.
Right. It is.
I'm unattached to the weather every day because my life is not determined by the weather. Thankful, but some people are. My life
totally. There's some people that they're instantly in a bad mood if the weather isn't good.
Yeah. And think about it too, there are people that drive through traffic that are attached to the driver in front of them. There are people that are attached to whether or not there are slow drivers, fast drivers, idiot drivers, reckless drivers, all of those things. Right. And yet not an ounce of control can be exerted on that driving environment.
Yeah.
And road rage happens because people are attached to the way other people drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works the exact same way in business.
Yeah.
Because when we get attached to the way other people operate, either inside of our business or outside of our business, or completely unattached or unaffiliated with it, like political policies, like government policies, then we've decided instead to attach our own outcome to something that we have no actual influence or meaning to. Yeah. And that's where we start to lose.
Yeah. No wonder that's the rat race. Like, no wonder why people burn out. Like, I'm putting myself in that. Like, I've been there. Like, and you're right. You're trying to control all these things that you just can't control. And I bet you there's a lot of anxiety and disturbance in that.
Absolutely. I mean, even just watching you make the gesture of controlling is you clinching, right?
Yeah.
And the gesture even of clinching causes like a totally different strain on your body.
Yeah.
To try to clinch and control than the actual like letting go part.
Yeah.
Of understanding that there's a set of things that you can actually control, and that you should take action to try to influence those things.
And that's your systems and models.
Yes. And that's whether or not you're contributing energy to the environment that is positive or that is influential. At the end of the day, though, you even no matter what, as a business owner, you can't control whether someone wakes up and gets out of bed.
Right.
You can control how you show up to influence whether they get out of bed.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you have to be unattached to the fact that that person maybe did not show up to work because they did not either choose or they were not influenced enough to get out of bed and show up. And so that becomes the hack that goes, what are we going to instead then attach ourselves to, if anything? Okay. In entrepreneurship that will cause us the pain. You know, it's interesting. One of our people said to me the other day, he said, why do you do this? Why do you keep dealing with problems, or why do you keep dealing with these kind of headaches? And you know, I love when people ask deep, good questions like that. And especially someone, you know, newer in their entrepreneurship. And so what I said to him was, the reason why you do it is because you want to take moments like this and give them back to people like yourself because you find fulfillment in it. Mm-hmm. And so my point to him is that I know that regardless of whether I do entrepreneurship or business here, there, or everywhere, it will come with its own set of problems. Right. To be a CEO or to be in business or to be alive is to problem solve. Right. And so I can't just quit, change, or make drastic actions thinking that I'll avoid problems to solve.
Right. It's just different problems.
I have to fall in love with the problems.
Yeah. You totally have to fall in love with the problems. And we try to avoid the problems.
That's right. Instead, I have to fall in love with the problems and realize that when I solve the problems, then I gain something from that experience in order to pass it on to someone else.
Right. And there's going to be a new set of problems.
That's right. And I have to find fulfillment in passing it on to someone else. Otherwise, there's probably not a good reason for me to go out and solve problems. I should do something with the least amount of problems involved. Right. I should go out and I should be the scanner probably on the assembly line at the UPS or whatever.
You go work at Amazon.
That's right. I should just pick things off and scan them, because I bet my scanner will work more frequently than a service-based business will work consistently. And so if I don't fall in love with the problem so that I can go out and pay it forward by sharing that experience, that wisdom, that knowledge with someone else, I'm going to be incredibly unfulfilled.
Right. And guess what I hear when I hear that I'm solving problems that I love? I don't hear, when I hear rat race, I hear extending energy for a energy source that's worth less than the energy. So guess what? You're not participating in the rat race. Yeah. Because you are solving problems that you love and you're paying it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as much as I hate to say that it's easy, because it's not, by the way.
No.
So let me just go back and say that on a daily basis, on a regular basis, I focus on the ideal future. I focus on the
just like everybody else,
part of it, like everyone else. Yep. That's right. However, what I realize is that because I have that awareness or that focus, I'm not going to do anything drastic. I'm not going to show up and quit. I'm not going to go up and like let it carry into tomorrow. At a certain point, you've got to leave it on the field. You've got to leave it at the office as much as possible, as many more days than you take it with you.
Right.
Right, the goal is that what's the percentage, right? What's the division of the days that it drains you versus the days that it fulfills you? You want to keep shifting more days towards the fulfilling side than towards the draining side.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I totally agree with that. Like, I talk to people about real estate and they're like, man, you're really passionate. I would totally do real estate and not get, I totally love what I do. Like, and it's not just real estate, it's the entrepreneurial. Like, you're building, like I say, I feel like you're building a machine with people.
You are.
It's just, that's what it is. It's like it's a machine. So, and to see it work and to see the different things that you can do with it, that to me is the happiness, the pursuit of happiness of watching it. Now, sometimes it feels like I'm getting kicked in the teeth because when you're building anything with people,
nothing ever goes perfectly according to plan.
Right.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's the thing. Like, so then it's not like a rat race because I love getting, you're getting your teeth kicked in, but you're doing something you love to do.
Yeah. There's a book recently that just came out. I think it was, maybe a month ago or something. It was the idea that you focus, instead of focusing on like the long-term future and what you are aspiring to, is that you have to stop and you have to focus on the gain. As in, like, even when you're going through this problem, this challenge, this thing that you don't enjoy in your business or in life, is what are you gaining by going through that experience? Because there's something that can be mined, that can be extrapolated from the experience that is a positive. If you're willing to find the positive, there's something that is positive in every experience. David Goggins talks about it. He calls it the cookie jar. When some days you have to reach in the cookie jar and realize, yeah, I am a badass. Yeah, I did overcome that shit. Yeah, life did suck then, and I still overcame it and became this person, so I can do hard shit. And so the experience of going through that event that you don't love is going to produce some sort of gain. You have to be willing to hang on to the gain and find the gain in order to not have the drastic negative pull of the rat race itself.
So what is the solution? Like, okay, I find myself, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm in the rat race. What do I do?
Yeah, you have to stop. And then you either have to get help from someone else or from yourself. And by that, I mean, I believe that typically that questions are what determines the quality of our thinking or the quality of our life, and that we can either have someone else who facilitates the questions for us to have a more positive awareness about this, what the benefit of the struggle is, or we can ask ourselves better questions in order to have the benefit of the struggle. And so if it's something that you're unwilling to talk to someone about, then journaling can be one of the best ways to have to ask yourself questions to find the gain. Right. And maybe that's setting out to say, okay, Adam did this with me when we had a sizable exit from our company, and some of our top performers left the company. And on my first coaching call after that event, he said, okay, he's like, you're clearly upset and this is bothering you. So after you get off the call, what I want you to do is take 5 minutes and write 3 things of gratitude about each person who left that you're upset with right now. And just that forcing me in that moment to write gratitude about people who left. And his point was, you can't write gratitude because they're gone. Yeah. Because that's a cop-out. Yeah. You have to actually write gratitude about the person, and then you have to write gratitude about what you gained or what you learned or benefited from while they were in your world.
And it changes the flow, the direction of your neurons. Like when you're sitting and you're pissed, when you can't be mad and give gratitude. No, that doesn't work together.
It doesn't work that way. That's right. That's right.
So I love that. That's a great. That's an aha that I'm going to take away, and I'm going to definitely try to. That's one thing I'm going to take.
Yeah,
I love that.
And so understand that then if you find value in it, like moving forward, then I have to then go look at it too. That goes, okay, I go through the quitting, the exodus, the being pissed part. I experience it. I learn something by doing that activity, and then I pay it forward by sharing it with you. Mm-hmm. That has to bring me fulfillment, which means the next time that I'm going through whatever event I don't want to go through in business or life, then I have to extract some benefit, some meaning, some experience that I pass on and pay forward to someone else and get fulfillment from that.
And that's what this whole thing is, you guys. Right. This whole podcast is like a labor in love. Like, we've gotten our teeth kicked in, and there's a way to, like, don't get your teeth kicked in. Listen to our podcast and then learn from what it is that allowed, Eric's built a really big business, and he struggled with a lot of the things that you guys are struggling with, that we all struggle with, and you can take that and learn from it. So I think that's awesome. That's totally great.
Eric, how do you define happiness?
A temporary emotion. I mean, to me, I just think that happiness is not actually something that you can, it is not a state of being. Let's put it that way. I look at happiness as an evolutionary survival mechanism. So I think about like the idea that a monkey climbs a tree going for a banana, and when it gets the banana, it's happy. And that's fantastic for adaptive evolutionary biology, because the monkey needs to have that sudden surge of happiness and that chemical release of dopamine when they get closer to achieving it, in order for them tomorrow to go back out and climb the tree and go after another banana.
Right.
And so, but when they're done eating the banana and they're full and they're satiated, the happiness is typically gone. Mm-hmm. And there's a new state of feeling or emotion. And so
it's contentment.
It's content, but it's not happiness.
Right.
And there's a difference, right? And so I think that you can have a state of joy, and that state of joy is often preceded by a state of gratitude. But happiness is just a moment in time. I look at like Tony Hsieh, the founder of Zappos, who unfortunately, in essence, to some degree, contributed to his own demise by pursuing happiness. His desire for the relentless pursuit of happiness arguably caused him to be much more unhappy. Mm-hmm. And because I believe that if you look at a lot of the first and secondhand accounts of the end of his life, he thought he could get to a state of happiness. He was literally seemed like trying to biohack happiness.
Yeah.
And thinking that happiness was something you could unlock.
Yeah.
Was what actually caused him to actually suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the biggest aha that I had was just the moment when I saw you're in that place. It just gave me clarity that you need to be comfortable and just define like what that win is, and just know that this is always changing. Like this I was talking to a person who was about to retire, and I remember him talking about, I'm gonna pay this off, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and then you know what, I'm gonna retire. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm gonna pay this off, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this. In that moment, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be doing this until I die.
Yeah.
That moment, because he literally is going through everything that I do in a day. And in a way, I was that guy. I'm just at a different stage. Right now, I'm not doing it to retire. I'm doing it to do something else.
Yep.
So when I understood that, it helped me let go.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all just chasing a banana.
We're you know what?
Climbing the tree again tomorrow to chase a different banana.
That's exactly what we're doing. And so it gave me clarity. You don't ever
actually get away from that. And so the thing you can get away from is the hatred for climbing the tree,
pain, that the
to
weight.
go get the banana. That's right. Is understanding that to be human is to go back up and climb the tree again tomorrow. To understand that in order to survive, you just got to get the banana. There's just no other choice.
It's not a rat race when you're not racing.
That's
when
right.
You're just.
That's right. The only race is you against your ideal self, because you haven't come to the awareness and the acceptance that the ideal self will move when you get there. You'll continue to change the finish line whenever you get to your ideal.
You know what I love? So I'm a Christian, y'all. I know I cuss sometimes. But all the Bible is telling you is that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's all the rat race puts in your head, that something is wrong. Yeah. So then you have to go out and move in order to make things right.
Yep.
And what the Bible says is that everything's going to be all right. Yeah. And so if you believe that, there is no rat race.
Correct. Because if you're okay, then you're okay with everything else.
There is no rat race. And that was the clarity that I got in 2020. Like, you're seeing a difference. I realized that, you know what? All this is fake. This is all made up anyway. 2020 proved that to me.
Yeah.
So if this is all made up, you kind of walk different. You're bold. And guess what? Everything is going to be okay. And if everything's going to be okay, there is no rat race.
Yeah, because what you learned is that you can be highly adaptive to whatever the set of circumstances is, whether that was you had to stay home for 2 weeks, whether you had to wear a mask, not wear a mask, wear yoga pants, watch Tiger King. Everything was okay if you chose for it to be okay.
Yes.
It was all a choice.